As promised, here it comes, part 2 of our most frequently asked questions from our couples. I'm Alan Edwards, this is the Say I Do It With Fuze podcast, and we had a phenomenal response when we asked our Fuze Ceremony Celebrant team for the questions they are asked most by couples, whether that be prospective couples or those who have already signed up and are ready to get on that journey with their celebrant to plan their ideal and perfect humanist wedding. So we've already covered many aspects of the build-up to a wedding, the wedding day itself, and even some of the things that happen after a ceremony is complete as well. So let's continue the chat and continue the most frequently asked questions in the company of our wonderful Fuze Ceremonies Celebrant team who have joined me on this episode. Oskar Gilchrist-Grodnicki, George Mclean, Susan Krenbrenk and Sam Conroy. And a wee question for you, Susan. We get asked a lot about music. Obviously, a lot of ceremonies, they will have string quartets, harpists, pianists, singers. Takes care of itself in that sense. But if they don't, and it's perhaps tracks being played through a PA system or whatever it may be, what responsibility, if any, do we have for that?
So most of the time it is the wedding coordinator that would do that. So when I'm having my meetings with my couple, I advise them that they need to have 4 pieces of music, 1 for walking down the aisle, 2 for signing, and then 1 for walking back out. And I ask them to liaise with their venue coordinator to do, to take care of the music. When I arrive at the venue, I'll check in with the coordinator as well and just double check that they've got that music. Sometimes we have venues that are a bit more DIY, so I would ask them to nominate a guest and give them a part as well for them to coordinate the music. It would be too much for us to stand and read it and then go and find the track and everything on the phones and then play it. So it was delegate somebody else to do that.
One question I get asked a lot, and I know we all do. I don't want to speak out loud. Do I have to? Well, do you, and to what extent?
Well, there is always going to be somewhere in the ceremony that you do need to speak, and that's obviously your permitted legal vows, more specifically the part where we legally marry you. It has to be audio or audible to be able to hear what they're saying, but they don't have to shout for the back of the room to hear it. As long as each other can hear it and the person marrying them can hear it, then that would be absolutely fine. Some people are just quietly spoken. Yeah. It's not even that nerves have got in the way, it's just that they don't have a big booming voice. And I always say to brides and grooms or couples generally, if you're getting married, be yourself. So don't become something that you're not on a day when the person that you're marrying fell in love with you exactly as you are. And if you're a quiet spoken person that's timid, then don't go shouting your vows. Say them lovingly to each other, because it's only really your ears that need to hear them, and mine, obviously.
Of course, quite important. And if you want to say the shortest version of the legal vows, Oskar, because that helps you feel more confident, then that's fine as well.
Absolutely. I've actually had a couple who, beyond doing the legal vows, they wanted to do personal vows, but although the groom was a very confident speaker, the bride wasn't so much. So they've actually come up with promises to each other, but they asked me to ask the question, and all they had to do was I do, I will, I can. And that made it a lot easier for the bride to manage that, but they still wrote their own personal promises to each other and agreed to them in our presence as well. So there's ways around it that you can make it a little bit more digestible for couples. Yeah,
if you want to do some form of personal vows but you aren't much of a speaker, then by all means get us. Everyone would be wedding celebrants if we were all public speakers, so it's much easier for us if it's much easier for you, it is no problem for us. We are more than used to reading out stuff on the couple's behalf. I spoke to a couple last night who booked me for 2026, and the bride is already trying to convince her husband-to-be that he wants to do personal vows because she does. So we'll see if they've managed it by March of 2026. Fingers crossed. Susan, me question for you, and they get asked this all the time. How long does a ceremony last?
On average, your ceremony would last about 25 minutes to half an hour, but the beauty about having a humanist ceremony is that it is completely tailor-made and bespoke to the couples. So I always say to my couples, if they're including at least one symbolic gesture, their vows and a reading, that would normally last between 25 minutes to half an hour, which I think is long enough to keep everybody engaged, really, really set the scene for the day, which is romantic, fun, a wee bit of laughter. Romantic, obviously, as your wedding day, but really sets the scene for the rest of the day, off onto party time, onto champagne and party time.
Yeah, so if you need to tell guests, if guests are wondering how long they have to sit without a drink, then There's your answer.
Absolutely,
Typically,
yeah.
maybe slightly less, maybe slightly more, as you say. It just depends how much you want to include, really, in the ceremony. The more you want, the slightly longer it may turn out to be. What about then? Do we need to get married at that time because we've got relatives travelling from quite a distance, and we want them to be there?
No, you can get married any time of the day that you like. I always say to my couples when they are booking me that I only do one ceremony a day, so I'm free for whenever you need me. So most ceremonies, but always check with your venue as well, but most ceremonies take place between 1 and 2 p.m. But there is a new popular trend now for the twilight weddings, which a lot of people are doing, starting maybe about 6 o'clock at night and then going straight on to the evening reception. There's some beautiful venues which lend themselves really, really well to the twilight weddings, and they're becoming really, really popular as well. So, any time of the day at all.
Don't worry about celebrant availability with that, Oskar, because I've got one in May where the couple are having, pretty much as Susan said, nice simple ceremony, straight into the partying afterwards. We are there to take weddings at all times of the day.
Absolutely. And I think actually with having that ceremony a little bit later in the day, it lends itself in for that kind of golden hour photo shoot opportunity as well. So it just kind of gives you a lot of other opportunities as well. And like you said, not everyone wants to do the big, audacious wedding with big wedding meal, wedding breakfast and stuff like that. A lot of people prefer to things a little bit more informally, so you can do your ceremony followed by a photo shoot and going straight into dance and have a great Kaylee for the rest of the night.
Quite right too. I actually had that last year. It was in a bowling club, and we did the ceremony, and then the Kaylee band just kicked straight off, and I was there for the first dance, which is quite rare for a celebrant, but that was very nice. What about? We've been asked this question. What do I do if someone I want to be my bridesmaid, my best man, they suddenly change their mind?
Well, in terms of the wedding day itself, I don't think it really affects us as Humanist celebrants all that much unless they are signing for the witnesses' forms or on the marriage schedule as such. If that happens, there isn't really much for you to worry about on that occasion. We can reach out to the registrar and update them about the details, and we can take the note of the alternative witness for your marriage schedule. This happens. That happens actually quite often. And we've got procedures in place to make sure that this is covered for you as well. So something that you shouldn't really worry about, but knowing that you've got a plan B for whoever can stand in for that person would be absolutely brilliant, because you don't have to panic about it all so much. Yeah,
it is quite good, Susan, isn't it? Just to have a wee plan B just in case, because sometimes circumstances out with your control can happen.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
I had, in fact, the same wedding last year that had the Kaylee band. The best man was a 50-50 beforehand.
Right.
I went, what are we going to do? And it turned out he was fine. He did a wee accident the day before, but he soldiered on.
It was all right on the night.
He literally all right on the night, which was absolutely ideal. Now, lots of the questions we get asked by our couples or our prospective couples surround the legal part of getting married. That's the bit that a lot of couples find very daunting, which, first of all, you shouldn't do, because your celebrant is there to guide you through all that, as are the registrars. There is plenty of help out there. But some of the questions just surrounding that, Susan, I'll start with you. We are perhaps asked by a couple, are we the ones, as celebrants, the ones who fill in the legal forms?
No, it's your couples. So when we have our meeting with our couples about the 12-week mark beforehand, we guide them through how to fill out the M10 forms, which have to be filled out and submitted to the registry office closest to where they are getting married. So it isn't ourselves that fill the forms out. However, we are on hand with guidance if they need any assistance with that. But no, it's each of the couples fill out a form each, and that gets submitted to the registry office closest to where they're getting married, no later than 29 days before their big day. But we do tend to recommend they do it more the 3-month mark beforehand.
Yeah, the earlier the better.
Yeah,
certainly. Can never be too careful. Now, when it comes to the day itself, we get asked a lot. Do I need to say my full name, including my middle name, which I don't like and I never use and nobody calls me by it? Do I have to say that out loud?
Unfortunately, yes. is the long and short of it. I do get asked this question quite a lot, and a lot of people say, oh no, do I really need to say that out loud? Can I just say it under my breath? A lot of people don't know that this is my middle name. Do you know what? We have a bit of fun with it. Unfortunately, yes, you do have to say your full legal name as per what is on your marriage schedule, but that wee bit where they do have to say their name out loud, and if they are, we have a wee bit of a laugh about it. So yeah.
You do sometimes see couples, if maybe they go by a different name in everyday life, and then a different name is mentioned at that point, you see some guests sort of looking and going, yeah. But you can do it, and that is the only point. You know, if it's a name that for whatever reason you don't use a lot, you aren't particularly comfortable with, that is the only instance where that has to be said. The rest of the time you can be...
Yeah. And do you know what? I think also it adds a wee bit of comic relief in, because, you know, when people are saying their vows, it can be quite a tense, nerve-wracking moment for them. So if we are having a wee bit of a laugh with it, then it breaks that kind of tension up as well.
Yeah. Here's a question, Oskar, that some couples will ask. Do we have to say on the day that we will obey one another? How very dramatic and formal.
It is indeed. And I think it is a kind of traditional aspect of ceremonies that you can, but you don't have to. When it comes to legal ceremonies, there is no requirement for you to say the word obey. The only thing that legal requirement has there is that you accept one another in marriage, and that's the way that you solemnise your marriage ceremony as well. But in terms of the obey, I mean, if you want to, by all means, you know, some couples are very traditional and they do promise and they want to say that to one another. But actually, in terms of the legal requirements, it's not a thing that you have to do, so you can personalise it a lot more.
Yes. If you decide you maybe want to do it as part of the personal vows, maybe a wee bit tongue-in-cheek, then by all means, you know, throw it in there. But no one's going to turn around and say, you didn't say obey, so we have to do it all again. We've spoken before about the 29 days. That's a cut-off. Paperwork cannot be submitted any later than that, or you're risking not having your marriage schedule in time for the ceremony. Now, at the other end of that, it also has to be returned to the registrar. And we get couples who are saying they're maybe getting married on a Saturday, and then on the Sunday they're jetting off to wherever it might be on their honeymoon with the flip-flops and the sombreros and all the rest of it. So what then, if that is the case, what do they do with the marriage schedule? Because, of course, registrars aren't then going to open again until the Monday in that case.
Yeah, so anybody, obviously somebody trustworthy, can take it back to the registry office. So I always say to my couples, your schedule's ready to collect the week before your marriage, but either one of you have got to collect that. But obviously a lot of people do go on honeymoon straight away, so anybody can drop that off. Some of the registry offices have wee drop boxes outside as well that you can drop them off. But usually parents or somebody trustworthy can then drop that off for them, and then their extract of their marriage licence will be ready for them coming back with their suntans.
Yes, that's what happened when I came back.
Post-honeymoon blues.
Yes, I came back from my honeymoon with the blues, but the certificate was through the door waiting for us, which was quite nice after a couple of weeks. George, wee question for you on the signing. A lot of couples will ask, you know, if one of them is changing their name, how do they sign the marriage schedule? Is it their name that they're just about to take, or do they sign as they have done all their life practically?
Well, not everyone opts to change their surname after getting married. So the legal requirement is you sign in the name of your birth name, and that happens as per the forms that they've submitted ahead of the time. But it's always a good practice, I think, as a celebrant to just nudge, because you already know if one of the party have chose to change their name, or they've maybe double barrel in their name, or they've made, on occasion, a new name they're going to share. But they have to do it in their current name before they assume a new name, because that's really all you're doing. Your birth name never changes. You're assuming a new name.
Yeah. I had a couple actually last year who decided they were going to merge their two surnames, so they did that. But yeah, whatever way around it is. But basically, I suppose that the advice is whatever you've signed as up until that day, just keep signing like that for the marriage schedule purposes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What about, obviously, rings are synonymous with weddings these days, but are they a legal requirement? Are they essential?
Well, they're a symbolic gesture. They're probably the world over. You show anybody a ring on your wedding finger, then you'll know. It doesn't matter what language it is, they know what it signifies. So it's nothing legal about it. It's a symbolic gesture, just like hand fasting or drinking from the quaich or candle lighting or any of the symbolic gestures that are very popular within humanist marriages, wedding ceremonies. But there's no legal requirement. But I can't think of any time ever that a couple's never done it, because it's just such a synonymous thing with marriage.
Yeah. You ever had that, Susan? Any couple that have said that they're not doing rings, or you've seen an alternative to that?
I think probably over the years, maybe only about one couple. And the couple that I can think of, they decided that they were going to buy each other a watch instead. Again, still a symbolic gesture. They were going to do that afterwards. They both said that the jobs that they didn't allow them to wear jewellery, and they weren't really jewellery wearers as such, so they would prefer to buy each other a watch. So, yeah, but most people do exchange rings.
I had that as well, where they've, I think medical professions, nurses and doctors and stuff like that might not be allowed, and maybe someone who works in heavy engineering or something like that. But the couple I've got in mind that did that, they just had a kind of symbolic ring to use on the day, just because they wanted to just make it a symbolism of their marriage. Whether they used it after, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. So if you don't fancy having rings for whatever reason, say we haven't really come across it, but it's not entirely uncommon. Or if there's a practical reason why you maybe it's not going to benefit you having a ring on all the time, then you can have your wedding ceremony without. That is absolutely fine. We've discussed, Susan, the legal vows already, and the whole obey and accept is the form. But what about if couples want to do something on top of that just because they want to do it?
No, I always encourage my couples. Again, it depends on the personality of the couples, if they feel quite confident in public speaking. But I always say, if you can, it always is so lovely if you can write your own vows and read them out to each other. And whilst you are in the presence of your friends and family, at that moment you are making your promises to each other. So if that helps you to overcome that kind of anxiety of public speaking, just remember that you are saying these promises to each other. So, and that is probably one of your few opportunities that you're going to get to do that in the presence of your friends and family. So it is really, really lovely. And I, over the years, have heard so many beautiful personal vows, and particularly from grooms as well, who always say, oh no, I can't do that. But then when they actually pour their heart out into the personal vows, there's so many times I've been very, very, very close to not being able to continue afterwards because I've been quite welled up. But personal vows all the way for me.
No, I've had that myself. It was 2 girls last year, and one of them in particular, and I'm like, keep it together. It'll all be fine. And of course, they don't, George, all have to be, if they want to do personal vows, they don't all have to be all lovey-dovey. If you want to include some of the silly stuff in there as well and lighten it up, have a nice little bit of light and shade, that's fine as well.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Often it's the silly things that will sort of break the ice, and amongst the sentimental stuff and the gushy stuff. Someone might promise to always take the bins out on a Friday or make sure there's a curry on order for a Saturday night, or that type of thing. Run a bath for the other half coming in from work. Who knows? It is often really personal to them, so although it's funny to everyone listening to it because it's a personal thing, often it's kind of maybe got a wee bit of deep meaning and a tradition they have maybe as a couple.
Yeah, and a lot of the time you hear some of these things and you can relate in your own relationship and
of course,
yeah. So you see guests nodding heads. Yes, that's us as well.
Make them their favourite hangover breakfast. I get that quite a lot.
Essential.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
When we go through the legal vow options, Sam, with couples, the 4 choices that they have, a lot of them will say, do we need to go away and memorise this? Do we need to know it off by heart and be expected, the celebrant standing there just going, okay, carry on? Does that have to happen?
Absolutely not. When you're doing your legal permitted vows, it's always as a repeat after me. So I think that straight away just alleviates all the anxiety, that kind of worry about speaking publicly or fluffing your lines, which actually you can still do, because some of the words even I get solemnly not always right. That seems to be the one that people tend not to go for, just because that might be the word that's said. But no, they don't need to memorise them at all. Similarly with, as we've just spoken about, their own personal vows or personal promises, always encourage them to put the vows on a vow card, or on other occasions there's been times where I've had them in my folder and they've just taken the folder from me, because again that's a great way for them not to have to actually have an additional thing to worry about when they know that we've already got it prepared for them. So there's no obligation for anything actually to be memorised in the ceremony, unless they absolutely want to do it, which of course will always be a choice for them. But in terms of the legal aspect of it, it'll be repeat after me. Yeah,
nice and easy. And I think we're all quite equipped, George, aren't we? If there are like personal vows and stuff like that, we will always have our own copy, whether that be because the couple forget their copy, or they maybe all of a sudden last minute turn round and just stage fright, can't deliver the vows, then we've got the option of doing it on their behalf.
Yeah, part of the planning with meetings and check-ins with our couples, we always double check who's saying what, when are they saying it, what are they reading from, and I think we always make sure we've kind of got the belt and braces approach of, even though someone might say, yeah, our stationer's making these beautifully presented vow cards and stuff like that, I've always got a copy with me, and I've always got a copy in the folder. It's a bit like fountain pens. You've always got ink for your fountain pen, a spare fountain pen, and a spare fountain pen for the spare fountain pen. Because that's that's a question actually we often get asked as well, is about, can we use our own pens?
Yes.
And legally, the signing of the marriage schedule has to be done in a fountain pen, which is legally scribing the paper and inking the paper at the same time. It's law. Couples don't need to rush out and buy these. On occasion, they might have got one as a beautiful sentimental keepsake, but they let us know. And it's always a case of just making sure you test it ahead of the time. So get there as we do, nice and early. And if they're using their own fountain pen, hasn't happened that often, to be fair, with me. I've had it maybe twice, I think. And I've been in Celebrant 7 years, where someone has a sentimental pen or someone's bought them it. But I got there nice and early to make sure the ink's flowing, because that's the big thing with fountain pens, is even though you haven't used it for 7 days, it still dries up.
Oh yeah. So I've had someone ask me, they had a lovely gold pen that they wanted to sign the schedule with. I said, nope, unfortunately not.
Ballpoints are out.
Yes, sorry about that, but no, fountain pen. But we will provide it, so you don't have to worry about you've got enough expenses on the go when you're planning your wedding day, so you don't have to worry about organising that. A wee question for you, Sam, about the quaich, which is one of our more popular symbolic gestures, drinking from the quaich, sharing a drink from the cup of life, and all the sweeter because you share it together. Now, the tradition with the quaich, and all the symbolic gestures have their own traditions, of course, is that a wee nip of whiskey is taken from it. So if you're not a whiskey drinker, does that mean then that you can't do the gesture?
Again, absolutely not. Obviously, traditionally, whiskey has been the drink of choice to go into the quaich. But we are not traditional people often in Scotland, are we? We like to have a bit of variation, so anything at all. And I think with the whiskey as well, you might have people that just simply don't drink alcohol. So that discludes them straight away from being able to take a drink from the quaich. So they might want a soft drink or water or something. So all of those options are perfectly acceptable for the quaich. But I think my personal favourite in terms of Scottish is when you still try to put a bit of Scottish tradition in it, and you have like Iron Brew, or you've got your Buckfast, or you've got one of the more sort of non-traditional but traditional Scottish elements to it. But it's everybody's personal choice. I've seen Prosecco go into it, I've seen Aperol Spritzes go into it, I've seen gin go into it, although I don't know if any of you guys have ever done gin straight, and it's not pleasant. I think whiskey would be slightly better than that, but
it's a symbol of sharing, isn't
absolutely,
it? Doing it at the same time,
yeah.
Especially with the kind of new trend of one of the taking a shot.
Yeah, tie the knot, take a shot.
Tie the knot, take a shot, or just doing a shot together as the last act.
That's what I did at my wedding, and it was tequila that my husband and I did, and we invited we invited 4 of our guests to join us as a complete surprise. So they were absolutely no idea what they were doing, just that they had to come down and join us at the front. But we had everything set up, and it was your traditional tequila. And how you do it. So we had the salt, we had the lemon,
the limes.
Everything was going on there. We wanted to set the tone that everybody was to relax, have a good time, and clearly get drunk. But it was so good, and the pictures as well. That's the thing. At the end of it, were really, really good.
The tequila rose seems to be a bit of a popular one, but the brides, if they've got a nice white dress on or whatever, and grooms, of course, in a light coloured kilt or whatever, they kind of almost like lean over. To do the shot, so they don't get any spillages.
I get tequila rose mentioned to me quite a lot, and then I'll say, well, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but just remember you've spent, I'm sure, a lot of money on that beautiful dress, and if anything happens to it.
I've had a couple of weddings as well where we've had champagne popped.
Oh,
so instead of having a quaich and instead of doing the shot, we've had the champagne getting popped. In fact, one couple who really, really, really wanted to do the champagne, but were keeping it specifically for the wedding, and she was an absolute fan of Misery. So she wanted the same bottle of champagne that appeared in the Misery film, and when she walked back up the aisle We popped the champagne and we did an additional toast to celebrate the marriage between
Anything's
her and her
possible
husband.
in a humanist wedding.
That sticks out in my mind because obviously Miseries, if you've not seen it, watch it. It's great, an absolute classic film. But yeah, the only thing about the champagne I would say is that the cork can pop before it's ready to. So I did do a wedding recently where champagne was being popped. Luckily it went straight up and not anywhere else, so nobody was injured in the process of this champagne corkage. But it can, depending obviously the situation that the champagne bottle's sitting in. But yeah, I've seen the cork go off, not when it's meant to.
How rude. Yeah, just a couple of examples from me on the Quake. I had a couple last year where the groom had been sober for a number of years and he was keen on the idea, wasn't quite sure. And just as we were discussing their story, and they sort of said to me, do you know what? We're just a wee bit kind of boring. We just like watching Coronation Street and having a cup of tea. I says, there you go. So get your venue to make you a flask of tea, which they did. Flask of tea sat on the signing table, and then we poured that in, and they had a wee cuppa at the Quake, which was really nice.
Tune to Coronation Street.
We should have done that actually. In fact, there was a pianist at that wedding. He could just have jumped in and tinkled away. And then it was actually a renewal of vows. This one I did where they had the tequila rose, but they also arranged for all their guests to have a tequila rose. So as soon as we got to that moment and they had the Quake, all the guests took a wee shot of tequila rose as well. So I mean, there's some brilliant examples of, yes, do the Quake and do pretty much what you want with it. If you're not a whiskey drinker, if you are more traditional, that's absolutely fine as well. Does anyone know of any just impediment why these two people should not be legally joined together in marriage? Do we do that?
Well, absolutely not, because that part is already done through the application for marriage notices, and the registrars will check that impediment has not been broken there. But quite interestingly, you see that quite a lot of times in the films, or you might have heard it sometimes in the past in ceremonies taking place. I incorporate that as a bit of a joke to my ceremonies and then ask for the guest's commitment to support the couple in their marriage. But it's not a legal requirement. We don't have to do it, and it's not a done thing normally. No,
you will not turn your head around and look around and see if anybody's got a suspicious look. It'll all be fine. Maybe something else here, Sam, that you see, in films and on the telly, is when you see a couple and they get engaged and it's all beautiful, and then the very next day they just go into whatever venue it is and they get married there and then. Mm-hmm. Can that happen in Scotland?
Not in Scotland. Vegas, maybe. Like Elvis, maybe conducting the ceremony, but I would question if it was legal just because they're probably burling. But in Scotland, no, they absolutely can't do that. We've got a legal requirement and a process to go through for application of marriage. And at bare minimum, it's 29 days before the ceremony, and that is the bare minimum. Obviously, we want it to happen well in advance of that. That's why they give us the 12-week window. So to be able to get engaged one day and married the next would need to be absolutely extenuating circumstances. And saying that, it could be that somebody is perhaps terminally unwell and that the couple have decided to get married for that reason, in which case the registrars would consider that as an exceptional circumstance, and they may grant the marriage licence after that, the marriage schedule, based on that fact. But it would need to be really exceptional circumstances for that to happen. In normal everyday life, in terms of couples that are planning a wedding, they wouldn't accept that as a reason. We're just got engaged and we absolutely just want to be with each other within 24 hours is not a good enough reason for a wedding schedule in Scotland to be granted.
I mean, it's a bit of a shame with all these movies and TV shows, Oskar, because then you miss all that wedding planning section out. They just go straight to the big day itself.
It was quite funny, actually. I've got a story with my brother-in-law who was planning to get married through COVID, and they were supposed to get married in Cyprus, and it was all planned and wonderful, and actually only about 2 or 3 weeks before the wedding they were told that it's not going to happen. The flights are getting cancelled left, right and centre. So they have inquired with the registrar here in Scotland saying, can we host the ceremony here in Scotland? And the registrar said absolutely not, because there's no extenuation circumstances here. Nobody is ill. There's no terminally illness in the family. So actually you're going to have to follow the same process as everyone else as well.
So you might not quite get a Hollywood moment like the movies, but thanks to the Fuze Ceremonies team, we hope that your wedding will be something of a fairy tale thanks to all this great advice and knowledge. My thanks to Susan Krenbrenk, Sam Conroy, George Mclean and Oskar Gilchrist-Grodnicki for joining me on this episode of the Say I Do with Fuze podcast. And we hope that the answers to our most frequently asked questions have helped you in many different aspects of your wedding planning. Remember, if you've already booked your Fuze Celebrant, you can contact them anytime with any question. We are always here to help and be that guiding hand. If you missed part 1 of our 2-part Frequently Asked Questions podcast, don't worry, it's available to enjoy anytime. You can listen right now, in fact, and to subscribe to the Say I Do It with Fuze podcast. That will mean that as soon as a new episode drops, you'll get notified on your device and you can download it to enjoy any time. Make sure you scroll through the series so far as well. Lots of great advice and tips for planning the perfect humanist wedding. I'm Alan Edwards. Thank you for listening and happy wedding planning.